Actually, that would be better. Yeah. Hello. Hello. I hope my mic works. Can't be too sure nowadays. I am Sony, and we're reading Hall 17. So, yeah, recap time. Last time on Hall 17, Pepper and Salt had a fight, leading to Pepper switching to her own room. And I think Tester just found out that the hotel is on lockdown, but she's outside of the hotel when it happened. So she's still in her secret bunker. So yeah. And that's what you missed on Hall 17 that I can remember. So yeah. Hello Fire. Hello BFDI fan. So let's just get into it. We're on chapter 24 called Injury. And I'm sorry, I just realized there's always going to be background noise. So ignore the background noise if you hear anything. Okay? So yeah. And I'll just start reading. Beep, beep, beep. A single, continuous sound interrupted Lightbulb's thought cycle. There was no point where it suddenly appeared, but it didn't fade in gradually either. It was sort of just there. Oh, right, Lightbulb's on life support. Oh, I kind of forgot about that. Oh no. She opened her eyes, feeling the bedding below her. The lights felt blinding at first, but she adjusted to them quickly. Oh yeah, last time also Lightbulb tried to do she stabbed herself with a pencil. So I kind of forgot about that. Oh, Lightbulb, Lightbulb torture is still happening. The lights felt blinding at first, but she adjusted to them quickly. The air had that similar chill of the lab in it, but it only brushed against her face, since the rest of her body was under the covers. She yawned, but when she tried to sit up, a burst of pain shot through her body, causing her to gasp and fall back down onto her pillow, out of shock. That certainly woke her up, to say the least. The pain left lasting effects in places, mostly her head, or maybe they hurt from the start, and she was only aware of it now. She didn't know. Along with the sudden aching in her head, she felt the memories crash over her in a wave, so hard she could almost physically feel them coming to the surface. The heart rate monitor began to beat faster. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be dead, buried away somewhere. Well, in a way, she was buried. Just in a cubed coffin that was all too big for her. Still breathing, Lightbulb looked around, realizing she wasn't in the White Room. No, she was back in the other room, the one she went to when she couldn't eat. The blue wolf certainly didn't lift her mood as she sat and thought about how she failed. Oh, yeah, somehow I forgot that. Yeah, me too. Poor Lightbulb. And Lightbulb's like thinking that once she died, Mephone wouldn't recover her. I mean, she doesn't know how the outside world works. Maybe Mephone already thought she was gone, so maybe he wouldn't have recovered her. That's her thought process. So that's what I think. And she had almost escaped. Maybe she would have been revived and given back a healthy body. Yeah, that answers my like thought process. It was that or she'd be with Bo. Wherever that was, either way, it would have been a breath of fresh air. And yet she was still in the cold excuse of a burial that was the lab. Her vision blurred as tears welled it up. trying not to slip down her face. She reached her hands up to rub them away, but only one hand felt anything. She swiped away the tears she could before feeling about what was left, beginning to panic at the new damage. She winced a little when her hand was suddenly sliced by broken glass, but shook it off, carefully feeling around the edges. From what she felt, almost half of her head was gone. When she looked back at her hands, they were coated with small cuts from the shattered pieces. She couldn't help but sob as, as she pulled her legs into her body, hugging them tightly with her arms. Lightbulb sat sulking about her failure and its repercussions for a good while. The sheets below her were stained a light shade of red, but not quite pink. "You're awake." Lightbulb flinched at the sudden talking, her breath hitching and abruptly ending her sob session. "Great. Right. When I fell asleep, too." The ever familiar nasally voice of Tissues complained, although it was less nasally than Lightbulb remembered. "Whatever, are you good?" Lightbulb wished they could see each other so he wouldn't even have to ask. It's not like he really cared anyway. It hit in If his tone of voice said anything, as much as she wanted to reply with a bitter no, or lie through her teeth with a yes, she couldn't slip a single word out. Her throat had closed, leaving her speechless as she could barely muster a shaken breath. Tissue seemed to hint take the hint, humming in acknowledgment. They sat in a sober silence for a good few minutes, the rhythmic, the rhythmic, the rhythmic beats of the heart monitor beginning the only sound. "Thanks for the picture," Tissue said. "It's not exactly how I remember it, but it's pretty close. So thanks, I guess." He had his usual voice that felt like he couldn't care less, but Lightbulb felt that wasn't his intention. Although he clearly wasn't the best with socializing, she could tell he was trying. The small effort itself calmed her down just a tad. "No problem," Lightbulb managed to choke out, looking at the blue wolves to her side as she laid down, drying off her tears once more. She may have just woken up, but she already felt exhausted, and maybe a bit dehydrated as well. She didn't completely doze off staring at the wall, but she at least got some proper rest. I think this is a POV. Okay, perspective changing. The walls were the same yellow tone as the carpet and lighting. The bloodstains had faded into a more brownish color, the two primary colors mixing so it was an orange-tinted shade. Everything was some sort of yellow, even Trophy himself. Trophy was sat against the wall, looking across the empty room. The door he had once tried so hard to open was right next to him. The only thing in this room that wasn't yellow, no, it was white, and it taunted him endlessly, standing out to make it seem more tempting. The only thing that kept Trophy from trying to destroy it again was his physical state. Everything hurt, but that was normal at this point. As long as he didn't move, it wouldn't burn so too much. So that's what he did. It's not like he had a reason to, let alone energy to spare. The only possible reason he had to move if things stayed this way was to try to break the door again. But he had accepted that its presence was just a tease by this point. He didn't want to waste the little energy he had left on nothing. Don't get him wrong, he had tried some time and time again to demolish that piece of metal between him and the rest of his labyrinth, labyrinth. The bent, rotting handle on the ground said enough about what he stopped trying. The dents in the door were the only real proof that he tried in the first place. He really needed that evidence. After all, if you looked at him as he was now and were told he had the motivation to try to wreck that thing, you'd probably just laugh if there wasn't those dents telling you he did. The pain was bearable for the most part, as long as he didn't let his head touch anything. He could push the aching aside. The worst part was the boredom. At first, Trophy thought of it as nothing. Of course, he was going to be bored. It was just one big room with nothing else. He wasn't going to have a tantrum over being bored of all things in this situation. He wished he could still say it wasn't much. Boredom didn't take long to turn into parano, paranoia, paranoia, para. I'm sorry that I could say. I'm keep like there's words I can't really say properly. I'm sorry, and I think I already swore in a different language. If you know what what the that word meant, then to fear. With nothing else to do. The imagination can do numbers on a person's mental health. The boredom wasn't a problem anymore since it had turned into something else entirely. Trophy would kill to have boredom be the problem again. It felt like so much had happened in the time he had been in the room, and yet absolutely nothing at all. It felt like a near infinite amount of time in the room, and that felt like he might pass out if he tried to go all the way across, but also like he was in a locker for just a minute. It felt bearable, but at the same time, he'd cave in on himself if he spent a second longer. He was thinking a million things at once, but not a single thought was clear enough to really be considered here. He stared at the wall. Even now, he still wouldn't let it look like more than a little boredom, though by this point Test Tube probably noticed. He didn't care, though, subconsciously hiding in hiding it from whoever else might see the footage. At least in the old storage closet Phone 4 put eliminated contestants in before he made his deal with OJ. He had other people to talk to, albeit mostly arguments. Here it was just nothing. The sound of footsteps interrupted Trophy's thoughts, uh, or lack of. He listened carefully as they walked towards him, then straight past him, like they always would. He almost went back to staring at the wall as he was. Keyword almost. The door handle turned, then turned back, as if someone was meddling with it. It jiggled a bit more before fully turning, and the door slowly creaked open. Test Tube walked in, closing the door behind her before turning towards Trophy. She looked a bit off, put by his composure, but also like she knew it would be like this from the start. Test Tube cleared her throat before speaking. Hello, Trophy. You've been here for quite the while, huh? She waited for a moment as if she expected Trophy to reply. Why are you here? Trophy said, not coming off the way he intended. Of course, of all people to come in, it had to be her. He hadn't been expecting anyone else, but he was still annoyed. I'll be straightforward. I have a deal I want to make with you. I'll give you your basic everyday things back if you help me with my experiments. I won't even make you do hands-on work, just a bit of assisting. Trophy stared at her, leaning forward. She was being serious. God, who was kidding? She probably left him here just to convince him to join her in the first place, and part of him was afraid it was working. So, do we have a deal? Testube asked, extending her hand towards Trophy. He sat there, dumbfounded by her sheer audacity. He thought for a moment. He didn't want to say yes, giving it in the moment he was given the option to, the exact opposite of the person he had purposefully made himself. But he was in no position to decline, was he? For all he knew, the next time she asked, he wouldn't even be capable of agreeing. He be- he beg begrudgingly begrudgingly, sorry, I don't know how to say that word, stood up before taking the hand she offered. Deal. Okay, so it's confirmed Trophy's now working with test tube now. And that was chapter 24. Sorry for the stuttering. Hello, Eternal Sugar Cookie. I'm just reading. Chapter 25. Photos. Trophy walked through the lab, following test tube. This was stupid. This whole ordeal was stupid. His body fought against every step he took, and yet he still continued walking alongside her. The lab itself, almost exactly how he imagined it from the few rooms he had seen earlier. God knows how Testu managed to memorize her way around this place, especially with all the locks and codes she had put in place. As Trophy, as as much as Trophy wanted to grab something to shatter her with and find his way out on his own, he knew he wasn't in any physical state to do so. So he did the only thing he really could in that situation. Used the little energy he had left from that room to follow her. Eventually, they reached a door labeled Hall 17. Trophy could almost make out talking behind it, though it cut to a stop as soon as Test Tube began unlocking the door, as she did every other. The place was very similar to the rest of the lab, except more closed off and cramped. She closed the door behind her, locking it once more, before signaling to Trophy to step aside. She walked over to the door with another sign that read, "One electricity," and unlocked it as well. She didn't say anything, simply standing outside the door. OJ walked out of the room, expression going from irritated to shocked once his eyes met Trophy's, though didn't say anything. Test-Tube didn't do anything to fight the silence either, instead grabbing OJ by the wrist. Before walking further down the hallway, Trophy took the hint and followed, concerned on how different OJ looked, to say the least. First off, he was completely different color. In fact, it didn't look like orange juice inside of him at all. Second of all, there were a few cracks along his rim, most either minor or bandaged well. He didn't comment on it though. It's not like he was in a place to say something or anything. I'm sick right now. Oh. Oh, I hope you get better. It was a bit awkward going through such a small hall with three people, but it was workable, especially when none of them really wanted to be near each other. It didn't take long for them to reach the room. Testu was taking them to either, which was a nice change of events considering that Trophy had just spent the last 5 minutes trudging through the lab to get here. Testube walked in first. It didn't take long for Trophy and OJ to follow suit. The room itself resembled a fairly simple doctor's office. The normality of it somehow put Trophy further on edge. There was an uncomfortable silence between the three objects as Test-Tube grabbed something from the cabinet. When she turned back around, she had a camera in her hands. Trophy recognized it from his own feeling, just slightly more at ease with the only homely thing he had seen in what felt like forever. She walked over and, to Trophy's surprise, she placed it in his hands. Since this is the first time, I'm giving you a relatively simplified version to test the waters. Testube explained, stepping back. All I need for now is some photos of S3. That's it? Trophy said. Mm-hmm. Testube hummed, nodding. Like I said, we're just testing the waters today. No, you're saying that you put me in that room for. I did, Testube said, interrupting Trophy. And I won't hesitate to bring you back if you can't follow simple instructions. Don't make this more complicated than this has to be. Trophy opened his mouth to fight back, but closed it reluctant, reluctantly, reluctant. I'm so sorry, reluctantly, realizing that wouldn't get him anywhere. He looked towards OJ, who was awkwardly watching from the side of the room. Well, may as well get this over with. It didn't take as long as Trophy had anticipated. But then again, he didn't quite know what was being asked of him either. It felt more awkward than anything, especially being neither he or OJ wanted to be there. But it was survivable. Test took the camera back, bringing it along with her as they all walked out of the door. The first thing that happened was OJ being sent back to the room he came out of. Trophy assumed it was something like his room, but less depriving. Testu began walking further back into the hall. At first, Trophy stood by, thinking she was putting the camera back. He began to follow. She, he began following her as soon as she looked back and stopped walking upon seeing he wasn't behind her. The walk wasn't that far. In fact, it was only about a room long. There was one room between Trophy's and OJ's, though it was just labeled too, so he couldn't take much from it. Test-tube unlocked the door, before standing aside wordlessly. The silence felt almost threatening this time. It's funny how absolutely nothing could mean so many different things. Huh. Trophy walked in, looking around. It was a relatively simple room, having a frameless mattress and some blankets on one end of a chair and a table on the other. It was also a lot smaller than the first room he had been in, even while considering there was furniture. If you have any questions, just ask the others, Test-tube said, quietly before closing the door. Trophy turned around to look at her, but the door was already being locked. He did, however, notice a meal slot in the wall with some food. She hadn't been lying, at least. Trophy grabbed the plate and sat down. Now that he thought about it, he hadn't eaten in a while. How long has it been in that room, anyways? He knew his mind had lost track of time with no way to tell when it was, but he hadn't gotten a clear answer yet. Either way, he felt better after eating. Still more exhausted than he would ever admit, but better nonetheless. He put the plate on the desk, not having anywhere else to put it. Before sitting down on the mattress he assumed was supposed to be a bed. He winced a little when his handle came in contact with it. For a moment he did nothing but stare at the ceiling. He was glad he was finally out of the room, sure, but was it so much better here? He was still physically weak, thanks to spending days there, but there was still really nothing to do. Plus, there was that awful silence he heard. It felt like a repeating theme in this lab, as if you could play silence through headphones. Everything was just so low. Besides, boredom was still a problem. He knew not to disregard it from this time, though. so maybe he'd do better now. Maybe this was just a second shot the world gave him at surviving that room. Maybe it was the exact same, or maybe he was just overthinking things because he was bored. Yeah, that probably was it. What happened this time? Someone asked, causing Trophy to uh, internally internally jump a little. He didn't let it show on the outside, however, instead turning towards where it came from. The wall. Great. Was he hearing things now too? It wasn't just her this time. Trophy was there too. A voice. Trophy recognized it as OJ said, through though it was very muffled from where he was. Were they talking? He was. What was he doing? The other voice said. Yep, definitely talking to each other. Trophy wondered whether or not should let them know he's there. Taking photos or something, Test Tube was telling him to, OJ explained. She kept on saying to him that she was just testing him to make sure he could do it or something. I was actually kind of surprised when he went with it. What do you mean? Like he's working with for her? Her voice was familiar. Trophy worked through the options quickly, being there wasn't a ton of them already. And figured it was soap. Yes, well, no, he wasn't in the best state, and mentioned some sort of room he was locked in. I'm guessing it's not his choice, OJ said, sounding almost used to it. How bad? He had an entire handle missing, and the other one was completely badly discolored. He was also shaking, but I don't think it was out of fear from how he was acting. It looked more like physical exhaustion than anything, OJ said. Geez, had he really been shaking? Trophy knew he wasn't in the best state, but he didn't notice himself shaking. He lifted his hand, looking at it. Nope, it was it was shaking, all right. He mentally shunned himself for a moment for it with a sigh. Just a moment. I think I heard something, Soap said. Hello? Oh, had caught that. Yeah, Trophy said, feeling a bit crazy since it looked like he was talking to a wall. You're here? OJ said, quite obviously caught off guard by just the tone of his voice. Trophy didn't find the need to respond to an obvious question. You're okay, right? So asked worriedly. I'm fine. Stop being overdramatic, Trophy said, understanding it. And what did you mean this time? There was a bit of pause after Trophy's question, as if Soap was thinking of the answer. From the start. From the start. Soap sighed, but cleared her throat anyway. Well, it's not like I have anything better to do. And was chapter 25, photos. You know what? Surprisingly enough, we got through 2 chapters in less than 30 minutes, so I think that's a good job. Though I think with the stuttering, I think I was just speed running. So yeah. I'm back. Welcome back, Fire. So, summary of what happened. Basically, Lipo woke up in chapter 24. She woke up. She couldn't move a muscle. She couldn't even move. Everything hurt. She talked with tissues for like one sentence, for like 2 minutes, and then she just slept for the rest of that. Trophy accepted test tube steel and is now like one of the one of her workers by force. So yeah. Trophy kicked his feet, staring at the ceiling. The ever so familiar feeling of boredom. It was only there, lingering as the others ate, but it still felt odd. After a while in the other room, he had just stopped feeling bored, in a disturbing way. He had too much on his mind to be bored there. Then again, there was a lot on his mind now as well, so that might not be it either. He'd eat with the others, but he didn't have any food. It hadn't taken long to realize he wouldn't be fed at the same time as the others. Test Tube knew better than to. He supposed if she did, he'd start trying to break out again, so she wouldn't give him the strength to. After all, it's not like photography needed strength to do. Regardless of how much it was, Trophy was glad he wasn't starving at least. Not to say he wasn't hungry, though. That plus the fact he was still bored with nothing to do didn't exactly put him in a good mood. He wasn't weak, though. He could put up with it. It was just he cut himself off when he heard the door open. He looked towards it, but it was still closed. Must have been from outside the hall. The silence felt louder than before. A couple more other doors opened and closed, and it didn't take long for Test-Tube to open his door. Standing still in the doorway, for a moment Trophy sat still, staring at her. "Come with me," Test-Tube said. There was some books collected in her arms. Trophy sat up with a sigh, walking out of the room. It was close to how it was about 2 days ago, just following her through the lab. He tried to catch a couple of the codes that she used, but she used her body to block his line of vision from any keypads. She opened one more door before motioning Trophy inside. The room felt oddly familiar. The room had several different filing cabinets, and most of the back was taken up by a desk. It wasn't a big room per se, but he wouldn't say that it was a small room either. He turned around to look at Test-Tube, who was already locking the door behind her. It felt so. Oh. It took Trophy a moment, but seeing the same closed door still with scratches on it made him realize this was the room OJ was sent his video from. It looked a lot different in person, but it was easily recognized by him. He spent too much time overanalyzing the video. Huh. This is my office, Test-Tube said, walking over to the desk. She placed the books she had been carrying onto the desk, creating a small thud. Trophy took the incentive to the walk over to her. Just like yesterday, I've kept things relatively simple. I have bookmarked the pages to start off at. All you need to do is take photos of each page. I'll be doing other work off to the side as you do. She handed him the camera before sitting down in a chair on the opposite side of the desk. Trophy fuck. Okay, sorry. Trophy hesitated for a moment, but walked towards the door. No, not. What am I saying? Okay, I misread something. I need to get something. I need to do something real quick. Okay, I'll try again. Trophy hesitated for a moment, but walked towards the pile of books anyways. They all had bookmarks, like had said, but they also had drawn on labels with different people's names. Objects who were down here's names. He opened the first one, labeled soap, in simple but neat letters. It didn't take long to recognize her clean handwriting. Every letter looked perfectly placed. These were journals. Of course, she wanted him to take pictures of their journals. He flipped to the bookmark page and began photographing everything past there. He didn't read, though. Eh, He didn't read through any of it. It felt weird looking through something like that, especially when test tube was right to the side of him. The journal was filled already, so it only took so long. He noticed another one with Soap's name on it, and could only assume she started another one after filling, filling out the first. He repeated the process, still feeling awkward as ever. Normally he wouldn't mind. He wasn't one to get into others' personal lives. Well, there had been the knife situation back on the show, and a couple other minor incidents that were similar back at the hotel, but that was only to benefit himself. He didn't actually care what others did. Besides, this would be going a bit far, even for him. Before he knew it, he had photographed every filled in page of the journal so far. He closed it, noticing a crossed out part of the back, but didn't pay much attention. He didn't want to think about what he was doing. He looked back at the last book, it being light bulbs. The bookmark was further back this time. He flipped open the book and was greeted by some sort of sketchbook. He couldn't say he was surprised, though. She definitely was an active participant in Paintbrush's art classes. Of course she was in Paintbrush's art classes. Of course she was. Of course. Okay, that gave us a little bit of positivity. He did the same thing he did for soaps, ignored it and just took the photos. Unfortunately, art is harder to ignore than words. He noticed the drawings were off. A lot of them were taking place at different parts of the island, parts Lightbulb hadn't seen in a while. There were missing details, not small details Trophy wouldn't notice, even if he did see a lot of the island on his morning jogs, bigger ones, such as completely different types of trees. It was a bit unsettling watching it dec- decrease in accuracy with each new addition to the journal. Trophy tried his best to ignore it anyways, and finished with it quickly. He put the book in a sack. I finished, he said, not bothering to sound nice with his tone. His voice felt a bit dry, but he didn't care. Right, just a moment, Test Tube said, typing something on her laptop. Trophy saw she was looking through the cameras she had placed and took the time to look at his own. Now that he was thinking about it, he didn't know how bad the damage was. All he knew was it had worsened to the point where he could barely lay down without his handles killing him. Even now, he could still feel the burning sensation they had. Oh, it's the journals. Yeah, the journals. Not the journals from Gravity Falls, the journals from Hall 17. Keep that in mind. Yeah, because that was obvious. Okay. Oh, even now, he could still feel the burning sensation they had. He turned the camera towards himself, taking a photo. He flipped it back over and was caught more off guard by how he looked. Most of him was normal, exactly how he remembered it. His handle wasn't, to say the least. It had a greenish brown rust to it. Oh, it's molding or something. It's rusting or molding, and that sounds gross. I'm sorry, Trophy. It's like that. I don't know what you call it. Rusting. I'm pretty sure it's called rusting. Isn't that what it's called when metal is like? Because then like how I don't know what type of metal is trophies made out of. I wouldn't think gold is it. I don't think trophies are made out of gold, but what would they be made out of then? Whatever metal trophies are made out of. Like when you put like water and metal they have like rusting, but like in this case it's more like I guess it's blood mixed with metal and like some sort of like electricity or something because then he was like I'm pretty sure he was like tranquilized. Cheap metal? Cheap metal? I think that makes sense. So yeah. Spreading from where it connected to his head, the small pieces left from where his other handle used to be had a similar tint. Both had small hints of red scattered throughout. No wonder OJ looked like he had seen a ghost when he first saw Trophy. Done, Test Tube said, closing her laptop. She stood up and took the camera from him, before placing it back on the desk, exchanging it for the journals. Let's go. The walk back somehow felt more awkward than before. It was the same path. Trophy knew that because he recognized some of the rooms they walked through. During the quick trail through the I'm messing up, sorry. During the quick trail through the lab, he wondered, he wondered, sorry for the, I'm really trying here. He wondered how OJ managed to get into Test Tube's office in the first place. The laptop also was functioning perfectly well, which was weird. Then again, Test Tube most likely knew to fix it. It didn't take long to get back to the hall. Trophy walked back into his room, watching the door lock behind him before sitting down. He spaced out, the other sounds coming from outside as he looked across the room and thought. Not about anything in particular. He just let his thoughts wander. Wander. Why am I mixing up wonder and wander? I mean, it's a fair enough confusion, but still. He just let his thoughts wander, since he didn't have anything better to do. So, how did it go? Soap asked. Trophy took a moment to realize it was directed towards him. When I left? Yeah. Well, yeah. Sorry, you just got here. I'll explain. Usually when we're taken out of our rooms, we talk about what happened. There's not much else to do anyways, she said. Trophy paused. Should he tell her the full story? She just had me take pictures of paperwork for practice or whatever, he said, settling for half the truth. Don't know why she couldn't just do it herself, but whatever. He looked at the door, most likely because he was talking about, well, yeah. Oh, she left food. He walked back over to the door, picking up the plate. It was a sandwich with some fruit on the side. Well, it was food, so he wouldn't complain. He sat back down at the table. Soap and OJ had begun talking about something else by the sound of it. Maybe he'd try journaling it if. Sorry. Maybe he'd try journaling it. I keep messing up, sorry. Maybe he tried journaling. Fuck! I'm sorry. I keep saying the wrong word. I'm so sorry. I'm really trying here. Maybe he'd try joining in later if he felt like it. After all, Soap said it herself. There's not much else to do anyway. Wake up! Get out of bed. Shower. Brush teeth. Do makeup. Pepper had a simple morning routine, but it was one she stuck strictly to, which is why she felt irrationally annoyed today, as she did her eyeliner. Routines were one of many examples of how she and Salt had kept control of their lives, and by extension, a good portion of the others' residents' lives as well. Pepper was so used to greeting her BCFF every time she woke up to the point where turning to see an empty bed instead of her left her routine feeling incomplete. Then, by extension, she felt incomplete. The whole hotel felt a little incomplete in itself. She felt she left the bathroom, closing the door behind her. She left the towel hanging. She'd bring it down later. Once she was done with her makeup, she'd go downstairs for breakfast. It was best to get her down there quickly. The coffee didn't take to disappear. The whole hotel was energetic normally, so Pepper didn't get why most of them needed coffee in the first place. On a regular day, she wouldn't need it either. Today unfortunately was not a regular day, at least for her usual schedule. Does she put eyeliner on her glass because she's a pepper shaker? Apparently. Or her eye. I mean, I'm pretty sure their eye is connected to their glass. So like it would go on her eye. But even then we couldn't even see. I mean, I guess that zoom in like the remaster that one time with like Salt's nails. I guess that's like an example of how they use like nail polish and makeup and stuff. We don't question it, okay? She reached the living room. Most of the objects who resided res I'm so sorry. Re- resided in Hotel OJ were already down there. The place had at the hotel began to especially as the hotel began to recover without them. Though as everything unfolded between her and Salt, she she saw just how low the atmosphere had gotten with the arguably most noticeable parts of the place gone. She walked in the bedroom. I'm so sorry for stuttering. I'm really trying here. I will work on that. This is actually like practice for me to read things out loud. I used to be good at like I used to do this better. I felt like I could read things out loud before, but I guess like I don't know what happened. She walked into the kitchen to see Paper, not Pepper, Paper. Why would she see herself? Oh my gosh. She walked into the kitchen to see Paper already there, grabbing a waffle for himself. He hadn't looked the best since this all started, and she couldn't blame him. He was one of the few people she understood why they'd a have a need for coffee. Neither of them said Neither of them said anything as Pepper walked past, pouring some coffee for herself. She grabbed some food for herself as well before walking into the dining room. I think I noticed a pattern. So like before Trophy tried to got taken by Test Tube as well, they focused on Trophy's character. Like 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 the pattern is supposed to be like the person who's supposed to be take who is next is gonna be like we're switching to their POV and focusing on them. So I think Pepper's gonna be the next one because like why else would the author like put in Pepper's POV? Like they're clashing together like things. Like sure the only reason Pepper's POV is because of Trophy, but then like why are we getting Pepper's POV? So like most likely it's gonna be Pepper, so we have to be careful and analyze like who Pepper talks to the most next after separating with Salt. Or since Pepper separated with Salt, Salt might be the next victim. So it's either Pepper or Salt now. Oh no, yeah. Neither of them said anything as Pepper walked past, pouring some coffee for herself. She grabbed some food for herself as well before walking into the dining room. As she looked for a seat, she noticed Salt was already sitting down. She looked drearily, resting her face in the palm of her hand. She looked up, accidentally making eye contact with Pepper. When she did, she immediately looked back down, irritation written all over her face. Pepper walked past, trying to be the mature one in of the situation by not bumping into her seat as she did. She found an empty seat next to Paintbrush, who was somewhat listening to Fan's ramblings, though their expression made it clear they weren't fully paying attention. Fan was also quieter than usual, something Pepper would have never noticed if she wasn't feeling down. Oh, so Testa won't get caught because this will happen. This is what's gonna happen. Like they're gonna notice Test Tube's gone, and they're gonna assume Test Tube was kidnapped. They're gonna assume Test Tube was kidnapped, and then Test Tube's gonna find be like it, or Test Tube's gonna pretend she was the one kidnapped. That way, it'll seem like she's like a victim when she's actually the mastermind behind it all. So what she'll do is she'll pretend to be kidnapped when she's actually the kidnapper, and then sneak around and try to kidnap her next victims through shadows and stuff. Pepper is in danger. Yeah, Pepper is in danger. Just what? Oh my gosh. Fan was also quieter than usual, something Pepper would have never noticed if she wasn't feeling down. It felt like she was viewing a completely different world than her own. She looked around the table. Everyone else had moved on, hadn't they? On edge still, sure, but far from devastation. Apart from the few who were close to the victims, all of this she was too ignorant to notice up until now. She looked back down at her food untouched. She knew where they were. They were approaching the 4 months mark since the first incident, and 4 months since Lightbulb disappeared. 4 months. 4 months. And then, I think the day afterwards, or did Soap get kidnapped the same day? I think she didn't. I think after, after, because then, I'm pretty sure Soap was, the Grand Slams and something, and then, at night. So I'm pretty sure, Test Tube took Lightbulb after, the party, and then, the day after the party of, and Test Tube was like, "I need to show you something," and then follows Test Tube to her vending machine, and then uh, what is that? Oh, what made you do that? Was it the test tube pretending to be a victim while she was just hiding in the shadows or something? Oh, I need to do something. Okay. Ugh. Okay. Now we're gonna almost finish this chapter. She looked around the table. Everyone else had moved on, hadn't they? On edge still, sure, but far from devastation, apart from the few who were close to the victims. All of this she was too ignorant to notice up until now. She looked back down at her food, untouched. She knew where they were. They were approaching the 4 months mark. Oh, it's because of the 4 months mark. Because they've been gone for that long. Since the first incident. And it had been a good week since the most recent one. Pepper knew she had to do something about it. She just didn't know how. The first thing she'd do is get some rest of the search crew to believe her. The first thing she'd do is get the rest of the search team to crew to believe her, to believe that test tube's the test tube and the evidence, or at least hear her out on the possibility of it being test tube. I mean, they don't have any other leads, so after that they could help. She just needed to change their minds first. Then they could get everyone out. She'd get them out one day, even if it took the most convincing she's ever had to do in her life. So Pepper's gonna try to convince the search team that test tube's the one behind it. But my prediction is gonna be test tube is just like, well, the hotel's on lockdown and I'm gonna just pretend I'm gonna be kidnapped next. They don't know it's me. And then but the problem with that, Fan's probably gonna be the next one or something, because Fan's gonna be like, I'm gonna check her base. Or I guess she can't do that. She can't pretend to be kidnapped because people would assume that, or Fan would tell people to assume that she's in her like in her what is it, vending machine thing, because Fan knows about it and Paintbrush probably knows about it. I'm pretty sure everyone knows about it who watched season 2. So yeah. uh, so summary would be test tube, Pepper, and starting her own journey to try and be a detective or try to figure things out. So yeah. Should I read one more? Should I read one more? Because this chapter is called Information. I'm just gonna read the first paragraph thing. One more. Okay. I will continue reading after the first paragraph thing. Yeah, he's letting people go out now, but just to get supplies. It's heavily monitored as well. He's really taking this whole thing seriously, Van said. Not that that's a bad thing, of course. It's a good thing, obviously. It's just inconvenient for us. I mean, I haven't seen you in how long now? 2 weeks? Well, if it's August 2nd and Hotel OJ went on lockdown July 18th, that would be just over 2 weeks, Testib said, doing the math in her head. She was sitting on her bedroom desk's chair. Her phone angled to show her as on its cameras. On the phone was Fan, a video call with her. As much as she preferred talking in real life, since body language was much easier to read when you could actually see the person's body, this would have to do for now. No, wouldn't that be exactly 2 weeks? Cause if 18 plus 12 is 30 and you add 2 more for it being August 2nd, that'd be 14, which July has 31 days, not 30. Test said, cutting him off. Oh, well, that doesn't really matter, does it? It's still been a while since we've seen each other in person. It's just been so gloomy here lately, Van complained, the camera showing him pouting. When is paper saying he'll take the hotel off lockdown? We'll be able to meet then, at least. He's saying once the culprit is caught, but knowing him, he might cave in early and put down some of the precautions before then. Interesting, Test Tube said, thinking out loud to herself. Well, you're helping out the search team a little, right? If the search team has any luck, then we'll be back together in no time. Speaking of which, how's that going? Oh, the search team? Well, they've had a new addition since Trophy disappeared, Fan said casually. They have? Test Tube said, a bit surprised. They were quick to replace him, huh? Oh no, she's not a replacement. At least I don't think so. She asked to join after he disappeared, saying that she thinks she knows something about who it might be. She says it's someone outside of the hotel. In fact, at first she said it was you. Isn't that crazy? You being the culprit, you have a solid alibi for all 5 cases. Fan rambled. Why would I do it? Test Tube said, laughing it off. Plus, I think that's the extra exact definition of a replacement. Who is she anyway? Surprisingly, Pepper. Fan chimped. All right, now that caught Test Tube off guard. Pepper? Hasn't she just been gossiping about the situation with Salt the whole time? Gee, she's the last person I'd expect to join. I know, right? But she's actually taking it seriously. I'd be impressed. But it's completely throwing everything off. I know. Let me re say that. I'd be impressed, but it's completely throwing off everything I know about her. She went as far as to do a separate room from Salt's, which is absolutely nothing like her character. Hey, calm down. Take a breather, Testube said, putting her hands up. Things change, Fan. I know, Fan sighed. It was just unexpected, you know? A change of events. Yeah, I'm shocked too, but Fan, please stop leaving your weird pillows lying around, said Paintbrush's voice, though they weren't in the frame of the camera. And dinner's ready, so come downstairs once you're ready. I'll be right there. Wait, weird pillows? Weird pillows. Fans weird Fan has weird pillows. I weird pillows lying around. Fan has a. I'm gonna say this, but it's so. Isn't this in character? I feel like this would be in character for Fan to have a body pillow. Is that the weird pillow? Is that what it's talking about? There's no other weird pillow I could think of other than a body pillow. Fan has a body pillow. I would believe it, wouldn't you? That's such a Fan thing to do. Wow, so crazy. Fan run, fan run. You can't. They're just oh my gosh. The fan. Fan I'm sorry, it's such a Fan thing. What it does make sense though. Wouldn't Fan have a body pillow? I mean, like it's a weird thing, but I could see it's in character. It's in character. I'm sorry. Ugh, Fan. I'll be right there, Fan shouted before turning back to Test Tube. Sorry, Test Tube. Gotta go. We can continue talking later if you want. No, I think this is a fine note to end on. Have a nice lunch. It's dinner. It's dinner, Test Tube. They just said dinner. Paintbrush just said dinner. Why would you say lunch? Having Van having a body pillow makes sense. It does. I'm sorry. It just does. Fan, we know you have a body pillow. I don't know who though. Maybe Spoiled Lemon? Would he have what but the question is of who? Like would he have a starfruit body pillow? A me phone body pillow? Like who? I wanna know who you idolize so much in this way, Fan, if you canonically do have one. I swear. That's such a Fan thing to do though. I'm sorry. Oh wow, that's crazy. He has one of every member. That would be that's yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. We're not gonna question fans' interests, okay? No, I think this is a fine note to end on. Have a nice lunch. It's dinner. It's dinner, Test Tube. Anyway, Test Tube said with a smile. Well, if you say so. See you later, Fan said before he ended the call. Oh, Fan, you have no idea that your girlfriend's behind all of this. Oh, Fan, you're gonna be heartbroken once you find out she's not who you know. Like, I know they're probably not they're definitely not canonical, like, at least not in the fanfic. In this fanfiction, they're not together. But, like, I'm pretty sure it's implied in the show. I'm pretty sure it's literally canonized. They had, like, children. Okay, they raised different they had Egg, and now they have Bot. So I'm pretty sure they're not like, then again, you don't have to be, like, a couple to raise a kid. You don't have to be a couple to raise a kid. That's a thing, but, like, I'm pretty sure FanTube's canon. And, like, all the moments with the multiple proposals. We won't believe any of the proposals until it's shown in the show, okay? So yeah. Anyway, moving on from FanTube. Well, if you say so, see you later, Fan said before he ended the call. Testube turned her phone off and pocketed it. What pockets? Was it with you guys and you having no what pockets? If you guys are literally if you guys are objects, you don't have pockets unless you wear clothes. I guess you have your lab coat, Testube, but come on, pockets? Really? Are you wearing your lab coat? I don't think you are. So why pockets? Seriously, why the pockets? She walked out of her room and into the rest of the lab. She'd admit she felt a bit guilty about taking advantage of her friend to get intel on the search group. Oh my god! It's doomed. They proposed to each other 3 different times. Not canonically, though. It's always been on a stream, in a meetup. I'm pretty sure like the first 2 times was on the stream, and then like for like I'm pretty sure like for the one like the I movie, like the one was like showing in like not LA, what the heck? I think maybe LA. I don't know, but there was like the movie preview in like London and the other place. I can't remember, but it's somewhere in the US. I'm pretty sure it was one of those with like after like the movie, there was like a little segment maybe possibly with like Adam and Brian, and then like one of the staff members actually had like a ring or something for Fan or Test Tube to use as like I don't know who proposed that time though. Like I'm pretty sure the first time it was like Fan proposing, and then the second time it was Test Tube, and then I don't remember who was the last to do it. So yeah. Okay, finishing this chapter though. Almost. Actually, we can't. Okay. We're halfway through it though. With the hotel locked up, it was the only way to know what was going on, and if she had to take any more precautions, and in this case, she had the feeling she might have to. It felt weird, however, the guilt sitting in her stomach. She hadn't felt guilty any time she'd done, well, any of her recent activities in this lab, really. She only felt guilty when it wasn't one of the subjects. Like when she saw how upset Paintbrush was over Lightbulb. Oh, sure, you're feeling guilty. Like how upset Paintbrush was over Lightbulb. How upset over. Yeah, you felt guilty that you were you're the reason why they're suffering. You're the reason why they are sad. Why their days can never be as bright as they used to. You're the reason. I don't care if you feel guilty, Test Tube, because we know that you're not even gonna feel bad after everything that happens. Like, this is implying that she doesn't even feel bad after Lightbulb literally almost killing herself. I have to really. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I have to censor that. I'm pretty sure that's why YouTube actually the YouTube was like like what's it called? Demoted me because of I'm pretty sure last time I read like Wattpad because of that chapter. So yeah, I gotta really add trigger warnings to that because Hall 17 is kind of yeah it is, and let me check if Hall 17 is like in the I'll check after I'm done reading, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Hall 17 is like in the mature like uh rated mature, so like that means like there's gonna be like gore, violence, language, foul language. I don't know what that's called, but I think it starts with P. Anyway, let's continue. Test tube sighed, unlocking the door as to her office. It was best not to think about it too much. She was lucky she hadn't gotten cold feet so far, and she wasn't going to test the luck any further than she already was. She paced around her office, thinking about what she had learned from Fan. So Pepper, huh? She must have seen or heard something from Trophy when he figured it out. She was also pretty quick on her feet to join the search team, and had quite the amount of social skills, meaning she shouldn't have too much of a struggle getting people to at least hear her out. If Testube wanted to stay as low as she was now, she'd need to get the shaker out of the picture. That shaker out of the picture? But how? Oh no. Yeah, I told you guys. I called it. Pepper's getting kidnapped. But how? Well, obviously, she wouldn't put her suspicions on someone else that easily, especially if Test Tube couldn't be there to at least try to change her mind. There were cameras around the Hotel OJ. As well, they were placed there when the hotel was first built. Okay, so in that case, couldn't they review. Wait. Couldn't they review the footage and see Trophy sneaking out and never returning? Why don't they use their heads? Because like OJ was also taken, but like that was at the vending machine, not the but like Trophy's kidnapping and also like Tissues' kidnapping was in the medbay, which is located inside the hotel, maybe. Actually, I don't think it was in the hotel. Maybe it was yeah, because it can't because the medbay was located where the library was, which we have no clue what this medbay or library is. But still, like if you have cameras, then couldn't they see Trophy sneaking out because he was in the hotel and then he snuck off? Like, I don't. Why can't they review the footage? Like, unless they have? I don't know. She had learned that from Fan not too long ago. However, there was one place he had also mentioned not having cameras at all. The bedrooms. Yeah, obviously. Why would you have cameras in the bedrooms? That's kind of an invasion of privacy. So fair enough. Okay, like obviously no cameras in the bedrooms because privacy. But apparently test tube doesn't understand privacy because she has cameras literally in every single room of her. I just thought of something that I know we're just gonna brush this off, but like my first thought was like if they have bathrooms, then wouldn't the people who she kidnapped have like bathroom like in the rooms they're trapped in? Do they have bathrooms? Or like I don't question it. We don't question it, okay? Pepper being kidnapped right after accusing Test Tube. That would be very suspicious. Well, how are you gonna get rid of her now, Test Tube? If you get rid of her, you're gonna look suspicious, even more suspicious than before. I think she's gonna try to pin the blame on someone else, though. And yeah. Test Tube had seen them herself, but OG considered having cameras in the rooms themselves a breach of privacy, and hadn't concerned someone just moved into a room of her own. It's almost comedic how things work out like that. Well, if you do it, you're gonna get caught, Test Tube. If you take her, you're gonna get caught, Test Tube. Use your flippin' head, Test Tube. Actually, don't use your flipping head. Get caught. We want to see how this goes. But, like, we know somehow, by some miracle of some sort, you don't get caught until, like, 55 chapters. 55 chapters. Oh, surprisingly enough, spoiler alert, I'm looking at these chapters' titles, and chapter 47 is Exit. So we're 20 chapters away from the possible escaping of them. Okay. I'm gonna try to wrap this up. She opened up her laptop, checking her plans. She had plenty of free time, so it wouldn't be a problem arranging that. Arranging when. Unfortunately, she didn't have time right now to plan everything else. She was past due on checking E1's conditions, so that was her first concern. Concern. You're acting concern. Yeah, sure, because concern, like, she doesn't. Okay, so I guess, like, guilt and actually feeling things. I guess, like, feeling bad and guilt are two different things. Or, like, feeling concerned and feeling guilty about things are two different things. Definitely. So, like, Test Tube's concerned for E1's conditions, but you're still calling her E1. So obviously you still haven't learned your lesson. After that, she'd get straight to planning. Lightbulb blinked slowly, gazing close to the lights. Everything felt so tiring lately. She felt more slothful than ever, and not in her usual happy way. Something was wrong. That was undeniable. She just wished she knew why. The reason felt so unusual. Drowsy. The slight pattering of footsteps from outside was audible, and a little after that, the lock being fiddled with, she sighed, knowing exactly what it meant. Test Tube was bound to check on her eventually, and Lightbulb just had to put up with it. It's not like she had any control over anything anyways. If she did, maybe she wouldn't feel so depressed all of a sudden. Oh no! No, she's depressed. And she needs her soda. Because she needs to drink soda when she's depressed. And or like Dr. Fizz. Because of the vent, like, oh my gosh. Sorry, I drink when I'm oppressed or depressed. I'm pretty sure she said depressed. No, she didn't say oppressed. It was oppressed or something. I know it wasn't depressed, but it's rhymed with depressed. Maybe it was depressed. I don't know. Sorry, I drink when I'm depressed. Which I'm not. No, I'm not. Drink while you're depressed. That line goes for like a good like that could have different meanings out of context, honestly, but still. Or like not different meanings, but like a different meaning on what you're drinking label, but still. The door opened with a click, its hinges squeaking as it did. Lightbulb turned towards the door. At least she tried to turn. Turning was hard when you were laying down and still had a pounding headache. watched Test Tube walk in, closing the door behind her as always. Without warning, she hoisted Lightbulb off the bed, setting her down right next to it. She began looking closer at different parts of her head, or what was left of it. Not a single word was spoken. None had been. Had to be. None had to be. As Test Tube did the examination, however, Lipo couldn't help but have her eyes on the floor. Not because she couldn't look at her in the eyes anymore, although that wasn't far from true. She was more focused on how hard the tilting was. It wasn't exactly a secret that she had become more used to softer grounds than regular hard flooring by now. Standing on it was fine. It was walking that felt weird. Out of all the properties of the ground she thought about, it was how hard it was. However, how her if her legs gave in from under her, she'd crash and shatter on it. She wasn't a stranger to death, to say the least, but it felt as if would be different from every other slip she had made from resulted in her having to be revived. Back then, it would have been a bit annoying at first. Now it would be a break from everything. A literal break, but still. Test-tube stepped away, seemingly done with her work. She scribbled something onto her notepad before looking back up at Lightbulb. Do you need help getting back on your bed? Lightbulb paused for a moment. She wanted to say no, but did she? The idea of falling onto the floor almost pulled her in, welcoming her. Just walking around her made Lightbulb feel fraught. She didn't know how long she had been wordlessly standing there, but it was apparently long enough for Test-tube to lose her patience. She walked over to Lightbulb, lifted her up, similar to how she did getting her down. Lightbulb flinched at the sudden contact, but didn't do anything besides that. She felt a bit safer once she was back on her bed, but the tilted floor still felt like it was calling her. And Lightbulb still wants death, and that's fair enough, but still, this is so depressing to read from our favorite Lightbulb. Test-tube jotted down a little more before looking back at Lightbulb, who was already adjusting to the covers to be more comfortable. She sighed, setting the notepad and pencil onto the knees. She didn't say anything directly. Test-tube sighed. We don't have to be dead silent around each other, E1. Call Maybe stop calling her E1. Maybe she will maybe possibly by a small ounce actually maybe, which I doubt, comfortable enough to talk to you. One, you kidnapped her for 4 months and did surgery to her without her consent, and you restrained her, and you didn't even give her amnesia, and you punished her with that, and you psychologically traumatized her. And yeah, I'm sure there's a reason why she doesn't want to talk to you. She said, turning to Lightbulb, who was still focused more on the ground. Things might be easier for both of us then. For both of us. I think it's easier for her. I think the only easier for both of us. It's hard for you because you don't know what she's thinking. Yeah, okay, that's the only reason why you want her to talk. You want her to talk to you, so that way you could write notes on her like thought process during all of this torture. Test tube be like, why is he one not wanting to talk to me? I sure do wonder. I sure do wonder, test tube. Lightbulb looked up, staring Test Tube straight in the eyes. She stiffly nodded with a hum, but refused to speak a word. While Test Tube grew just a fraction more agitated, she still kept her composure. She hadn't been lying. She wanted things to be easier. If that meant keeping herself together for a moment, then so be it. She slowly placed her arm on Lightbulb's arm. Test Tube, I don't think Lightbulb wants you touching her. The fact that you pick her up was without her, because she kind of has no option. She kind of has literally no option but to let you pick her up, and let alone that makes her uncomfortable. Maybe test it. She'll tell you. She's just gonna be like, Lightbulb's just gonna be like, stop touching me. Yeah, because like you literally abused her. You abused her. I'm pretty sure this counts as abuse because you literally traumatized her because of your own selfish, so, like, psychological damage to your brain. Like, what the heck is wrong with you, Tester? Why are you doing this? Literally, why? Why? If the fact that she said at the beginning that she doesn't even plan on posting this to the public. So who are you planning on seeing this? And yeah, is this what you want to be remembered as? This monster who literally used objects, like real life objects, to just find answers. Oh my gosh. This is actually becoming one of my least favorite test tubes, surprisingly enough. Oh my gosh. Being careful not to startle her again. I think she's startled and traumatized. She's traumatized. She's always going to be startled by your presence. There's nothing to do. She's always going to be startled by your presence. Oh my gosh, like, whoa. Things stayed that way for a moment. Oh no, that is just not good. Test tube didn't look back at her subject. That's her subject. Her subject, really. Even the third person analyzing this in test tube's way. Oh, back at her subject the entire time, but kept her hand rested. Lightbulb didn't argue, staying still herself. After a couple minutes, Test Tube cautiously sat back up, not one, still not turning to look. She grabbed her notebook and pencil and walked out of the room. Okay, yeah, exactly what I thought. You only wanted to talk to her, or see how she acted towards you mentally and stuff, just for your notes, because this is still an experiment. Although you said yourself you're gonna stop doing surgery on her and just help her recover, I don't think she's ever gonna recover. I'm sorry, Lightbulb, but I don't think. Well, you're just kind of messed up now. Like, even if you die and get recovered, you're gonna still live with the trauma, and that's gonna suck. Oh, poor Lightbulb. Just gonna give her a hug. We're just gonna imagine ourselves hugging Lightbulb. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna actually. I think after this chapter, I'm gonna look up like. Actually, no, because then I would get spoiled because we're only 27 chapters in, and like this is finished. So, like, I think what we're gonna do after we finish Hall 17 is we're gonna look at all the art and stuff, if there is, which I'm pretty sure there is, because this is a very complex story. And my dog's outside barking. Locking it behind her. Lightbulb looked, holding the spot test tube had previously had her hand on. It was weird to think that, not too long ago, that could have been a regular interaction. Not something out of the blue. Not something that felt out of her character. She already missed the small amount of natural warmth hugging herself tightly. If things could go back to how they were all before all of this, before all the tests and distrust and misery, she would do anything. Even though she knew Test Tube just wanted to make things easier for herself, Lipo still held onto the moment. She wanted the test tube who cared for her friends like that back. If she still had the ability to glow, the room would have been brighter than any shade of white any object who had ever seen. So, oh, oh, that hurts. I'm rereading that again so emotion could hit. If she had the ability to glow, the room would have been brighter than any shade of white any object had ever seen. That that ow that made me feel something. Oh my gosh, my poor light bulb. I'm just gonna do we I think we do have time. I think we do have time for one more actually now. I'm only gonna read halfway though. Actually, let me check how long this chapter is. Yeah, only reading halfway. This is a long chapter. Test Tube stepped out of her lab. Her her bag slung over her shoulder, and a smallish wagon carrying a comedically large blanket rolling behind her. The forest glimmered under the moonlight, the slight rusting of the trees providing an ambience. She walked forward, already knowing the path to the hotel by memory. She steadied her breathing. What she was about to do was possibly one of the biggest risks she'd done this entire project. The she discovered something could have gone wrong, sure, but she had done riskier things before. T4 was definitely a dangerous move, but with how little people hung out with him, it wasn't much. Trophy hadn't been her risk. He brought himself into the lab. All of that wasn't too bad, but this? Testu tried to stay as neutral with anyone on the search team as possible, excluding Fan that way. Once they began considering it being the most innocent seemingly objects behind the cases, she'd still go under the radar. And she still failed at that. So now she had to avoid the consequences. Well, in a way, she was still paying for them, just in a different way. Crazy idea. What if she frames Pepper for taking salt? What if she takes salt instead of Pepper? That way she frames Pepper for taking salt because they're not talking anymore and they separated. So in a way, after she takes Salt, Pepper's gonna be like, it's Test Tube, and then Test Tube's gonna be like, what the heck are you talking about? And maybe I don't know, she takes Salt, frames Pepper somehow. I don't know how she would frame Pepper, but she does. And yeah. And she still failed at that. So now she had to avoid the consequences. Well, in a way, she was still paying for them, just in a different way. There were only so many ways this could go. Pepper could convince the rest of the search team, then they take some form of action against Test Tube. Test Tube obviously didn't want that, so she was taking action before Pepper could. While Pepper disappearing would bring suspicion to everyone she was accusing, it would only become worse if Test Tube left it. So here she was, walking towards Hotel OJ at nearly 3:30 in the morning with nothing but a wagon, a sheet, and a bag of supplies. She pushed a tree branch out of the way before walking out of the forest to the side of Hotel OJ. Lemon trees were still lightly scattered around it, leaves slightly rusting from the wind. Test Tube walked closer to the building until she could torch the bricks. Here she was. She took the blanket out of the wagon, unfolding it below the hotel so she could jump onto the from one of the windows. The wagon was put off to the side. She shifted the bag so she could dig through it easier as she walked towards the wall. She only had one try at this. She couldn't mess it up. This was the side where the rooms were. Pepper had to be in one of them. All Testu had to do was be quiet. She had done this before. She just needed a smooth repeat of it. She placed her hand on the top of one of the windows, then a foot at the. That scared me. Okay, something happened. That's not gonna. I'm gonna back away from the window. Okay, give me a moment. Okay, well, surprisingly enough, I got a gift. Um, so I'm gonna read like two more paragraphs and then I have to end it. She placed her hand on top of one of the windows, then a foot at the bottom, pulling herself up. She carefully scaled the building, trying to ignore the shaking. If she was right, the rooms were on the fourth floor. That wasn't too high up, right? It would be easier. It would be chillier, and the wind might be stronger, but nothing too bad. So why was her hand shaking so much when she looked at it? Because you're scared? Just admit you're scared, test tube. What? What? You can't let fear win? Well, too bad. Feel the fear. Feel fear. Feel what your victims felt when you traumatize them. I'm sorry if I'm being a little bit rude towards Testu, but I feel like it's fair enough because she is doing quite a few, or not even quite a few, but a lot of few awful things. When she looked down, the blanket below her felt small. She sat down on the windowsill, sifting through the bag that was still on her shoulder. It wasn't long enough, she found it, the lock pit she had created some nights prior. She had analyzed the windows to see how the locks worked so she could create a device to unlock them. She slid it under the window to make sure it opened once she pushed it upward. She pushed the curtains aside to look into the room. Inside were Mike and Knife, both sleeping. Tess worried about waking them for a moment, but they both were considerably loud snorers, so she didn't stress about it too much. She slipped back out of the room as quickly as she came, shutting the window behind her. She looked around, seeing if there were any windows nearby. One close enough to step over. Unfortunately, the windows were spaced out. She sighed, considering going back down and climbing an entirely new row of windows. Before she did, however, an idea hit her. She looked upwards to the fifth floor and saw that the windows were less spaced there. She smiled to herself before climbing to them. Her hands were still a bit shaky. I feel like she's gonna get caught. She's gonna get caught. There's no way. There's no way she can't get caught. Test tube, your luck is gonna run out this chapter. I just know it. Once she was above another window on the fourth floor, she climbed back down. The device unlocked the window, just as it did the first one, and she slid in again. This time it was in paintbrush. She mentally sighed before stepping out of the windowsill, placing the device back in her bag. Right as Testu climbed back up, she heard the lock being messed with her below. She froze, looking back down at the window she just left. It didn't take long for the window to open completely. A couple of thin bristles and a hand resting outside almost immediately backwards. This open? Paintbrush voice mumbled, audibly half awake. Test tube didn't dare to breathe. Huh? What are you doing? Fan asked, his voice also tired. Tired? The window is unlocked, Paintbrush replied. I heard something that woke me up near the window, and when I went to unlock the window and check outside, since I didn't see anything here, it was already unlocked. Weird. Before Testy could hear what else they would say, the window shut again. She could practically hear her heartbeat in her ears, breathing shaking. She shook her head before climbing towards the next window, careful to not make a sound. She hopped down and saw the curtains were already drawn, giving her a view of the room without having to step inside. Well, that was convenient. Inside, Pepper laid down on a bed, one beside her empty. Third time's the charm, huh? Test tube pulled out the lockpick once more, sliding it under the window before she slipped in. I'm gonna read this until Pepper gets kidnapped. Okay, Pepper's gonna get kidnapped this chapter. This is gonna happen. Okay. Hello, Mason. Paintbrush isn't getting kidnapped. We're lucky for that. Also, I think Paintbrush could take Test Tube onto in a fight. I'm not gonna lie, or maybe not. I don't know who would win in this fight. I don't know. I'm reading this until Pepper gets kidnapped. I'm reading this until someone gets kidnapped. Okay. Pepper. Yeah. She walked towards the bed, breathing with her mouth to make less noise. She silently shuffled through her bag, grabbing a rope. Pepper seemed unbothered, seemingly deep in slumber. Testube lifted the sheets off of her, carefully trying to tie her up without waking her. Pepper began to stir, opening her eyes into half lids. Testube tried to back away before she woke up, but from the shock that quickly set into Pepper's eyes, she knew it was too late. You have to make her. Okay, I know I'm gonna switch sides real quick. Okay, now I'm back. Testube, you have to make her go to sleep. You can't get caught now. You can't get caught now. You're screwed if you get caught now. So you have to make her go night night. You have to knock her out. Tranquilize her. Do something before she makes a sound, okay? Okay. Moving back to hating you. Oh yeah, I still hate your guts, Test Tube. Please get caught. I hope inside the future of II they make a joke on how Pepper sounds like Pepsi. Pepsi Pepper. Put some pep in her step because it's Pepper. Pepper. That's I feel like there should be a song about that because it's like Pepper because like Pepper has like that because it has like it's fun to say pep pepper pepper. Yeah. Pepper seemed unbothered, seemingly deep in slumber. Oh wait. Oh yeah, you're not. Oh wait, no, we already wrote this. She acted quickly, covering Pepper's mouth with her hand. Testube tried to reach for her bag, but Pepper knocked it away before she could grab anything. The way she violently thrashed around was sure to wake someone up eventually. Testube had to get her back to sleep, but first she needed both of her hands. She knew she'd hate herself in the future for her plan, but it was the only solution. Even if it might interfere with her studies, it was the only thing she could think of at the moment. She shook off her hand and off Pepper's mouth for a second, but not long enough for her to get a scream out. Testube slammed the shaker's face onto the bed frame, causing the sound of cracking glass to the floor. Her hearing for a second. Well, that was definitely woke someone up. She considered doing it again to knock Pepper out, but that could just kill her. Once again, going for the only option she could think of the heat of the moment, Test Tube maneuvered her legs so they could be held down Pepper's arms and grabbed the rope. She then pressed the rope tightly against Pepper's neck. Okay, a lot of this is just Pepper torture, so get ready. Pepper frantically kicked at the bed below her as her breathing was cut off. Hands trying to reach for her neck in what could have been a hope to pry it off. Testu wasn't as weak as she may come off to be, however, and Pepper's eyes began to flutter, and she was soon passed out beneath Testu. Testu removed the rope, checking Pepper's pulse to make sure she was alive. While her breathing was heavy and blood was spilling out of her cracked mouth, she still had a heartbeat. Test Tube didn't celebrate yet, though. She ran over to the bag Pepper had thrown across the room and picked it up, carrying it over her shoulders. She looked back for a second, taking in the view, blood trickling down the bed in a thin stream, pepper flakes all over the pillow. Pepper looked almost exactly as she did when she was asleep. Tester lifted Pepper's unconscious body over to the window, the rope still loose round her neck. Tester threw her out onto the blanket, before standing back out the windowsill, shutting the window behind her before jumping off. The blanket had placed down was enough to keep her and Pepper from shattering, though it wasn't completely comfortable. Tester placed part of the blanket back into the wagon, keeping Pepper on the outside part to avoid any signs of in the grass. How does Pepper Shaker bleed? We don't question how Pepper Shaker bleed. How does light bulb? How do light bulb bleed? How do soap bleed? I mean, how do they even have ears, really? Like they say this in the remaster. My ears hurt. Ah, you're making my ears bleed, Mike, or something like that. So like we don't question it. We don't question it. As she began her path back to the lab, she already heard distant muffled shouting from the hotel. Already knowing her way through the woods fairly well, Testu reached the lab in a matter of minutes, letting the wagon go in before her. Now, all she had to do was continue the experiment and hope they didn't catch on. Testu is the biggest idiot in the world. They're gonna know it's you. Pepper told them that was you, and now you go and you're also gone the same night she's taken. I'm pretty sure they're gonna assume it's you. Okay? Like, there's no way of you getting away with this, literally. Now all she had to do was continue the experiment and hope they didn't catch on. Hoped she hopped into the vending machine, the last trace of her presence all the way back at Hotel OJ. You're gonna get caught, test tube, and we're literally 28 chapters in, and somehow you still weren't. So that's something. We're more than halfway through, and you are now just being caught. That's crazy. So laid down. Actually, I think I might end it. Should I continue? Should I finish the chapter or should I end it? Good question. What question? I kind of forget things I ask and say. They're not that stupid, test tube. Come on. That's true. So should I continue reading? Should I finish this chapter and then end it, or just end it right now? Finish the chapter, okay. Soap laid down peacefully in her bed. She wasn't fully awake. but could easily wake up once she wanted to. Technically still conscious, but choosing to stay as if she was asleep. She preferred it that way. There weren't a lot of ways to avoid the obvious topics nowadays. In the lab, so sleeping longer avoided using up the already slim amount of options she had. The sound of something hitting the wall woke her up, making her jump as she tried to open her eyes as quickly as possible. Random noises weren't exactly a good sign. After all, she sat up and immediately found what, or rather, who made the sound. Pepper? Soap asked, blinking in disbelief. Pepper had been facing the window, but spun around as soon as she heard Soap. Her mouth was wrapped in bandages, but her eyes were full enough in with fear to speak for herself. She backed into the wall, creating another small thud. Soap noticed OJ beginning to wake up. "Hey, are you okay?" was the first thing Soap said, standing up from her bed. "Just try taking a deep breath." Pepper's expression was still panicked, but she closed her eyes, chest visibly rising and falling slowly. When she opened her eyes again, she looked calmer. "God, what happened?" OJ said, rubbing his head. Pepper's breathing hitched for a second, but she calmed down quicker than before. She stood up, looking out the window. "I Pepper? I woke up and she was in the room with me," Soap said, scratching the back of her head lightly, careful not to disrupt her own bandages as she did. "I thought she was done bringing people in, and she's already done a test on her by the looks of it." Of course she would. Well, surprisingly enough, test tube didn't do a test on her mouth. I feel like that's kind of gross. But like she was injured trying to get her down here. No, because that's literally that's terrifying for Pepper. Literally just sleeping, wake up with someone trying to tie you. You and then they put their hand over your mouth. You try to get away. They you let go and you scream, and then they just bash your head into the bed frame, and then they just like squeeze you hard with a rope against your neck until you just stop breathing and pass out. That's literally terrifying as heck. Question mark. Yeah, this is like this is very thing like I know but still like I guess we should have known that obviously there was going to be like violence, because of course that's natural, because like if you're getting kidnapped, you wake up in the middle of the night, you struggle. But like test tube just test tube lost all her morals. I should have known. Okay, test tube has no morals. Okay, she doesn't even have basic morals at this point, so I shouldn't have expected anything else. I He sighed, pressing his back against the wall. "Well, welcome to the lab. Don't think she can't talk," so said, gesturing towards the bandages wrapped around Pepper's mouth. "Here, let me just." She walked over and she her and to her and unwrapped part of Pepper's bandages. Soap stopped as soon as she saw what was left of her. Could you even consider it a mouth anymore? She doesn't even have a mouth anymore. Test tube, you literally could have literally aimed anywhere else. You literally That is such a disturbing image. She doesn't have a mouth anymore. She basically doesn't have a mouth anymore. What the heck does that mean? Did test tube sew her mouth together or something? Like, oh my gosh. The glass around it was cracked into oblivion. Tiny shards stuck to the back of her bloodied bandages. It was more like a hole in her face than a mouth. as many lips she had before were long. She don't got no lips. She don't got no lips. She don't got no lips. Oh gosh. Okay, yeah, add that to the oh gosh counter for you. Oh my god, test 2. Exactly, test 2. What the flip? Let's just leave those on for longer, Soap said, wrapping the bandages back around Pepper. Her stomach tightened at the image of what was under it. Well, since you can't talk, how about we? Soap trailed off, but had said just enough for OJ and Pepper to get the point. Stepped over to the shelf, pulling out her journal, flipping to last pages, tearing off a couple clean off from the spine. Here, she said, handing the pages to Pepper, along with a shortened pencil. You, you can ask us whatever you want. We'll try to answer as the best we can. Pepper nodded, placing the paper on the floor before writing something. Before she could finish, however, a new voice popped into the room. Are you guys awake? Trophy asked from the other room. Pepper jumped, accidentally creating a thin line across the sheet. OJ and Soap seemed used to it, however. Yeah, there's a new person, OJ said bluntly. Another? Does she ever think about when might be a good time to stop? How does she even get new people in without waking us up? She probably has sleeping gas or something. Wouldn't be surprised after everything she's managed to have in the lab, OJ complained. Yeah. Who's the new person anyways? Oh, it's Pepper, Soap chimed. She can't talk though. Her mouth is not in a good condition, to say the least. I gave her some paper to write with, though. Trophy paused for a moment. Tro? I heard you. Trophy cut in. Pepper had noticeably stopped writing, looking straight at the wall. I thought I told you not to get involved. Did you not think there might have been, a reason I specifically told you not to do anything stupid? His voice gained more and more frustration with each word. Hey, let's calm down, all right? So tried to reason. No, I physically walked up to her and told her not to do anything. If Testa went out of her way to kidnap a sixth person, then she clearly didn't stay the out of the way. Trophy seethed. Soap tried to talk him out of it, but he talked over her. That's assuming she didn't walk into here herself, knowing I was taken here when I had my guard up. How hard could it possibly be to step back and shut up? OJ shouted, making the room go silent. Trophy, Pepper literally just got here. I don't like her that much, but can we please save the arguing for later? At least let her understand what's going on before you blow up on her. Trophy didn't say anything in response, engulfing the room in silence again. Pepper stood awkwardly for a moment before offering the paper to Soap. She took it with a small smile before reading it. On the paper was a list of questions, most of which were regarding stuff Soap had stopped questioning after being in the lab for so long. It hurt to realize the lab felt more natural than imagining life back with the others, but she brushed it off. Well, may as well go down the list. Question 1. Where are we? Oh, right, because OJ, she had some sort of character development. Oh, I bet OJ is gonna be like, how's Paper doing with Pepper? I mean, he could have literally asked that with Trophy, but still. He probably did ask that with Trophy. Actually, I don't even think that's like the first thing he has in mind. Would that be the first thing he has in mind? Probably, because he would be like, how's the hotel? How is Paper? What is going on at the hotel? Are we ever gonna escape? With and then Trophy's just like, I'm not answering any of your questions, I'm too tired, and then he's just gonna be annoyed. Test tube, this AU needs to get the bean show treatment. I still haven't finished the Bean Show, so that's kind of bad. I only watched episode 1. I haven't even finished episode 1 now thinking about it. All I think I know is that Bean possibly, maybe, competed in, like, the Grandma show or something. And now my Wattpad is just okay, it broke. It broke. Oh my gosh. Okay. What the heck? Okay, that was chapter 28. Oh my gosh, I didn't even read the chapter title, and the chapter title was literally Pepper. The chapter's title was literally Pepper. We should have known from the beginning. Oh my lord. Well, summary. Pepper doesn't got a mouth anymore and was kidnapped because, yeah. And Tessa's probably gonna get caught. She's gonna get caught, okay? Like, we're almost 30 chapters in, okay? And she's gonna get caught, okay? If she doesn't get caught, then, like, literally, how? How? She does. She's gonna get caught, okay? Literally, if she doesn't by the end of this, I will literally be so concerned and literally make, like, literally a chart on how she should have gotten caught, okay? Rip Pepper's mouth. Yeah, exactly. Rip Pepper's mouth. She can never talk. I'm just gonna. Should I continue? I think we reached the 2 hour mark. I don't know. Because, like, after this, I kind of want to read more. I think I'll just read, like, the first sentence to see if we should. Ever since Paper had to take over management of the hotel, he learned to keep a list of things to do, so he couldn't lose track of it all. Today, that list was relatively short. Dealing with the sixth missing object case was not on the list, but by how things were going, he was going to have to do that anyways. Okay, so I'm probably just gonna continue reading, but I won't stop to read comments because we gotta really spin through this chapter. So yeah, I'm just gonna read this last chapter, hopefully. Speed read this without any mistakes. Probably not gonna be any mistakes. Actually, what am I saying? There's gonna be like 50 stuttering words coming out of my mouth while reading this, like 5 words per second. So not like five. I don't know. Okay, you count the words I read per minute or something. I don't know. Anyway, gonna read this without checking comments, and then I'll check comments after this. So you can make comments like throughout, like things that like make no sense and stuff. But like I'm not gonna read them out loud until I'm done with the chapter. So, starting this in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I gotta go. Okay, Fire. I'll do a recap for you next time. Baseball, who had told Paper about the situation, walked over to the room. Paper had recently been given. Paper tried to get a view of what was inside, but there were too many panicked objects blocking his vision. Excuse me, everyone. May I please get through? He said, a little louder than he intended. Most of the objects moved aside after hearing him. To Paper's pleasure, he carefully nudged his way into the room and was caught off guard by its state. He didn't know what he had been expecting, but it certainly wasn't this. Blood was splattered on the floor, and the side of the bed was as well as small shards of glass. The sheets were all messed up. Nobody was touching it, but there was definitely a crowd around it. Some objects couldn't bear to look. Other objects couldn't look away. Paper collected his thoughts before stepping in front of the mess. Everyone, I understand waking up to this might be scary, but please don't panic. I need everyone to step out of the room so we can investigate. Please. You can all go into the living room for the main time, Paper said, trying not to accidentally step backwards into the scarlet stained carpet. Slowly but surely, everyone filtered out of the room. He sighed. Looking back at the scene, upon closer inspection, there were grains of black pepper scattered along the glass, only standing out due to the red background. "It's 4 in the morning," he muttered to himself. He pulled out his phone, opening up to the search team's group chat. While it was mostly used for contacting each other for things to do with the search team, there was a bit of a joking around as well. He texted a quick message telling all of the in the hotel to come to Pepper's room before putting his phone away. "So, what do you think happened?" Knife asked, stepping into the room a minute after Paper sent the texts. "I talked to Nickel about it, since he was the first one to notice. He said he heard glass shattering, and when he went to check, this was here. That means it wasn't too long ago." "It wasn't?" "Oh yeah, because test tube did this at 3:10. Ah, no interruptions." "Yep, that's what I just said," Knife said back, walking over to the bloodied carpet and crouching down next to it. "Yeesh, looks like somebody fought back hard." "That could also mean whoever the attacker was strong," Microphone said, fidgeting with her dial as she walked into the room alongside Fan. Mike seemed a bit unnerved, while Fan looked more on the curious side. "Can I talk about something that happened with Paintbrush and I earlier? I think it might be related to this," Fan said, tugging at his folds. "What is it?" Paper asked, turning towards him. "Well, Paintbrush woke up earlier since they heard something from the windows. They didn't say what, but the window wasn't locked when they checked it. Do you think the kidnapper might have used the window? It would make for a pretty quick escape." "Well, no way to know it. We don't check," Knife said, standing up and walking over to the window. He tugged upward, and sure enough, it opened. "Huh, so that's how they got away then. Is there anything at the bottom?" "Nope, just glass." "Van, you said your window was open," Mike asked. "Yes. Paintbrush locked it afterwards, though. I tried to go back to sleep, but then this happened," Van said, sitting down on the bed across from Pepper's. She was supposed to have a new roommate once Paper figured out who to room her with, but that obviously wasn't happening now. "Do you think there's other windows open? I mean, nothing happened to you, and your window was open. Maybe others' windows are open as well," Mike suggested. "Maybe," Knife said, stepping away from the window. "I'll go check our room." He walked out of the room, stepping around the blood stain on his way out. Nobody did anything for a moment. After a couple awkward minutes, Paper walked out over to the window. Looking down, his stomach tightened at the view. He was never a fan of heights. "Someone should go check down there. There might be more evidence that's just too small to see," he said, backing away from the window once he had seen enough. "On it," Fan said, but right as he ran out the door, he slammed into Knife. Sorry," he said before continuing down the hall. Knife looked back at Fan, not able to say anything before he went running. "Our window was unlocked as well," he said, walking into the room. "We should look to see who else's windows are unlocked." Paper and Mike nodded. "Maybe later, though. We still need to document everything and clean up the room," Paper said. Okay, I can't comment. I can't comment. I can't comment. I need to stay focused. Shoot. Fan needs the keys to the hotel to look outside. "Could you two?" "Yes, we can document and start cleaning," Knife interrupted, leaning onto the bedpost. "Go and look outside with Fan. We can handle this." "Right, thank you," Paper said before running after Fan. He left the room, going down to the stairwell. Running wasn't too hard when you were literally weightless, but he also wasn't the most athletic, so it took a bit of breath. Surprisingly, he met Fan while he was at the end of the stairwell. since he had been walking. "Oh, hey, Paper, did something else happen back in the room, or?" "Nope, just need to open the hotel's door for you. We're still on lockdown, remember?" Paper said, catching his breath. Fan nodded. They cut through the living room, heading towards the front office. A quick comment, you should never clean up the crime scene. I feel like that's like evidence. I feel like you have to like have caution tape around it and then like let professionals investigate it. But you know what? There's actually literally no actual detectives in this town probably, except there was a police officer wanting like investigation thing. So I really don't know why they're cleaning up this test heap when they could have called the cops. Literally there was literally evidence. Why are they cleaning up the evidence? Okay, back. Paper opened the door to the office. Walking inside, he opened one of the drawers on the desk, pulling out the keys to the hotel. He also grabbed a flashlight, since it was still early in the morning. He walked out to the front door, which was guessably next to the front desk. Office. It's desk office, it's the same thing. He looked back at the living room. Everyone had gathered there like he had asked. Most of them were obviously unnerved, but were comforting each other nonetheless. Bomb was sitting on the ground with the cherries, the later hugging the other tightly. Suitcase and Balloon were standing around with each other, Balloon's hand on Suitcase's back. Paper always admired the community this show had made. Yeah, it wasn't perfect. Per- yeah, it wasn't perfect. He had people couldn't handle here, and there were plenty of arguments, not to mention how chaotic everything could be at times, but it was a tightly knit group, and they were there for each other. Just because he didn't like everybody doesn't mean he didn't get along with most people. Everyone was helping to solve this the best they could, and Paper took a moment to acknowledge that. He snapped out of it for a couple of seconds, turning towards the front door. He fidgeted with the lock for a moment before the door could unlock. "All right, let's go," Van said cheerfully. Maybe a little too cheerfully for the situation. Paper wasn't too unbothered by him, though, instead following him outside, locking the door behind him. The breeze made Paper shiver, but outside of the freezing wind, it was actually quite nice outside. August was a nice month, weather rise, right? Wasn't it? The sky in front of the hotel was a fading purple, the sun rising to rise, beginning to rise, but still underneath the hills and trees. "Geez, it's dark out here. Should we go back and grab a light?" Fan asked, still by the door. "Already have one," Paper said, flicking the flashlight on. Fan happily nodded before following Paper to the side of the building. They walked over to the ground below Pepper's room, but when they looked, nothing. Fan said to himself, prodding to the grass to his feet. Not even a grain of pepper. Paper looked up at the window. It was the only upstairs light on. Everyone else was settled in their rooms by now. Everyone else was settled in the living room for now. That meant it was Pepper's room. I'm good. I need a breather. I'm back. Sorry for being so silent. It's okay. I'm just trying to speed run this to try and not make it 2.5 hours. Also, not dying. Maybe dying. I don't know. Maybe I am dying. reading, reading, and stuttering over my words. I needed a breather. Paper looked up at the window. It was the only upstairs light on. Everyone else was settled into the living room. That meant it was Pepper's room. Even though the only escape route that would be quick enough to run was the window, there still wasn't so much as a drop of blood on the grass. He sighed, placing his hand on his forehead. Hey, I'm sure we'll find something eventually. The kidnapper left a lot of more evidence this time. They were sloppier than usual. I'm sure they've left some vital piece of the puzzle behind if they had to leave that quickly. Fan reassured Paper. Paper smiled back at him. Thanks, Fan. For now, though, we should finish documenting the lack of stuff on the ground and finish looking at everything. Besides, Knifen said his room's window was open as well, so we should check the other rooms just in case, Paper said, walking back to the front of the hotel. Gotcha, Fan said, following behind him. Paper looked back at the sky, the purple just a shade lighter. He knew this wasn't going to be easy, but he could do it. If the hotel had made it this far, then wasn't going to fail now. They just had to do the process again. Maybe they'd find something that revealed the kidnapper's identity this time. All could do was just as they investigated was hope to find something useful. I swear I'm not dying here. I'm not dying here. I'm just trying to take a breath. I'm gonna check something real quick. I am not dying. I'm just being a little over dramatic. Sure, let's go with that. Yeah, because taking a breath isn't that important. uh, I'm okay. Okay, that's enough of taking a breath. I'm probably gonna drink water after this. Lightbulb gently creased the paper, folding it inwards. She wanted to draw, but there was a lack of drawing materials. She knew that was her fault, though. After all, she had gotten here because of the pencil. Why would test tube let her around the very thing that destroyed a good half of her face? She folded the paper one time before looking down at it. Air paper airplanes, the kind throw around inside, even though they worked better outside. There were so many different ways to make them. And to test out which ones worked the best with different throws, Lightbulb shot the one she had just finished folding across the room, watching it gently soar before turning its side and crashing into the floor among with the few others. She grabbed another piece of paper, this time folding it directly. She tried to add another fold to the wing, or maybe thicken the base, or maybe both. That was the joy of doing stuff on your own. Nobody was there to stop you. Fold it in, then to the side, then back in. She smiled to herself, humming a tune under her breath, subconsciously. Of course, if you changed multiple things at once, that would be messing with multiple various variables at once. Variables, that's what test tube called them, right? But that was only for experiments. Lapo paused, looking down at the newly made paper airplane in her hands. Did this count as an experiment? She was just continuously testing out different airplanes to see which design worked best. As much as she didn't like the idea of it being such, it was exactly what it was, wasn't it? Even if she was having fun along the way, she was still ultimately looking for an answer. She sat there playing down on her lap. Testy would say she did experiments for fun, back when they were still friendly with each other. She enjoyed both the process and the outcome. That's why she loved sciencey things so much. She'd also talk about how most things you enjoy should be like that you shouldn't enjoy one part of it but hate the other parts. Paintbrush liked art because they liked the process of painting and or modeling or whatever form of art they were doing. They also liked art because of the final results. Lightbulb liked cooking for the same reasons. She looked down at the paper airplane. How much of this was Test Tube enjoying? Lightbulb knew that it wasn't all of it. She had seen the guilt on Levile's face at the start of it all, back when they'd still looked each other in the eyes. Even if she convinced herself she was, Testy wasn't enjoying this, right? No. No object that used to be so fun to be around and a joke with could have been fully enjoying this. Every other experiment she has done before, this was fun, harmless. For the better. This was the exact opposite. Maybe she'd enjoy playing around with the paper airplanes more. Of course, she couldn't say just undo all of this. Something told Lightbulb this wouldn't be easy to fix. She sighed, picking up the paper airplane and aiming it. She thought she saw why test tube liked fun experiments like these. Maybe not something Lightbulb would do all the time, but sure. But would do all the time, sure. But it was definitely fun. Click. Lightbulb threw the airplane half out of surprise and half out of plan. She quickly turned her head to the door, watching it open. When had Testa walked over, she wasn't that zoned out, was she? She didn't see the paper airplane land, only hearing it land with the others. Dot dot dot. Test tube opened her mouth, like she wanted to say something, but shut it without a sound. She walked in, turning towards the door afterwards, but not shutting it in. Instead, someone else walked in after her. Trophy. Hold on, Trophy? Following her in like this was regular thing? Lightbulb did a double take, but sure enough, it was him. He looked like himself though, for once. His handles were, well, the one that was still there looked like it was about to fall straight off his head. It was clear he wasn't comfortable just from his face alone. One moment. I'm gonna mute myself during that. I'm done dying. That way you guys couldn't hear me dying. Okay. Testo locked the door behind him before going to clean up the paper airplanes. We're doing the same thing we did with S3, she said to Trophy. Right, Trophy muttered, looking over towards the counter. There were a couple of the planes there, and a box of light bulb had never seen inside, but it was empty otherwise. He seemed out of it, really out of it. Test tube took a couple of minutes to collect all the paper airplanes, but once she did, she put them all on the counter. She walked over to Lightbulb's bed, detaching the bracelets from her wrists. E1, all I need from you is to stand still while we do this, Test tube explained, though it didn't help Lightbulb at all. What are we doing now? Lightbulb asked under her breath, carefully sliding down from the cot. Just a photo shoot. For my notes. Lightbulb nodded, walking forward with Test Tube's help until she was in the middle of the room. She looked down at the floor, resting the urge to cover her stomach. She had been afraid of what it was, but this was just awkward. Painfully awkward. The camera clicking was the only noise of the room. All right, that should be enough, Test Tube said, taking the camera from Trophy. Lightbulb looked up. That had taken less time than she anticipated. It was still uncomfortable, sure, but she expected 10 minutes at least. Or maybe 10 minutes had passed and she didn't notice. Test Tube stepped closer to Lightbulb, gliding her finger along the whole of her face. It had been smoothened earlier, so it didn't break any skin. You should be ready to go back to your room now, E1, she said abruptly before turning to Trophy. She needs your help walking, if you wouldn't mind. He looked over at her with Lightbulb with what Lightbulb could only assume wasn't a nice expression. Before turning around with a sharp exhale, he grabbed Lightbulb's arm close to her shoulder, though the hold was surprisingly gentle, even if it didn't look like it. She wondered if he meant to be gentle, or if he was physically weakened, or maybe a mixture of both. They cautiously left the room, following test tube's lead. Lightbulb spent most of the walk looking at the different experiments the vial had in her lab. None of them were anything like the one Lightbulb was in. She felt oddly warmed up towards the projects, jealous in a sense. In one of the rooms they walked through, Lightbulb must have gotten distracted. She stepped forward in a weird way, or maybe her leg gave out on her. Either way, she slipped forward and her breathing hitched. If it weren't for Trophy grabbing onto her arm, mostly immediately, she would have hit the ground and cracked. Well, Trophy, you should have let her crack, because if she died, she could have been revived and she could have saved you all. So I think that's a little bit of a failed attempt to escape there. But then again, Lightbulb can't. Lightbulb might have never been the same if Lightbulb actually died, she would have. If Lightbulb died, she will never be the same. And I can't. I gotta stop adding comments. Bleh. Tessa might have heard something as she looked back at the two. She just slipped, Trophy replied gruffly, not an ounce of respect towards Test Tube in his voice. She either didn't notice or didn't care, as she continued walking as if nothing happened. Lightbulb couldn't tell if it was her imagination or not, but Trophy's grip on her arm felt tightened afterwards. Tighter, but falter. Eventually, they made it back to Hall 17. The door looked almost exactly how she imagined it. Then again, it wasn't like it had been long since she last saw it. A week or two, maybe. Test Tube unlocked the door, walking in afterwards. Lightbulb was let into her room first, already adjusting to the pillowy ground as soon as she stepped in. The urge to flop straight onto the ground already made itself present, but she ignored it. The door locked behind her with a click, signifying she was here to stay. She softly smiled at OJ before fully walking into the room. She looked towards the window to see Soap, but was caught off guard by, well, Soap was still there. There was just a new face there as well, already having some bandages. Lightbulb didn't say anything, awkwardly waving, even though there was nothing necessarily stopping her from talking. While Testu was still outside the hall, it felt wrong to break the habit. It took a couple more minutes for Testu to leave the hall, as well as separate door opening and closing. The room stayed in silence for a couple more seconds before Lightbulb spoke up. So, a lot changed while I was gone, huh? Yeah, OJ said, sitting down. He didn't look at her. She didn't blame him either. The first time he had seen each other probably traumatized him. No wonder. He wouldn't make eye contact. We don't know what happened, but she can't talk, Soap said, sitting on the edge of her bed. We've settled on writing things to each other for now. Gotcha, Lightbulb said, doing a quick finger gun towards Soap. I'm good. Have you guys talked to Trophy at all, or I'm right here, Trophy said, presumably from the next room. Lightbulb jumped, but laughed it off under her breath. Trophy, she couldn't have known. Don't be rude, Soap scolded, turning towards the wall behind her. Lightbulb let them do their bickering and sat down on her bed. She looked at the ground, white and padded. There was still a slight tinge of red on her side of the room. She didn't have any right to be upset with it, though. She leaned against the wall, staring at the door. Something in her mind told her Soap would want to know more about tissues once she remembered Lightbulb could talk to him, so she took a small change to readjust the room. The place felt the same as it always did, empty, disturbing, cold, but at the same time it felt almost like home. Almost just how Lightbulb remembered it. Oh my gosh, Lightbulb, don't tell me you're actually getting used to this life. Please don't. Please. Please don't give up. Please. Please. Somehow we read. I think we only. Oh, the crazy thing. Oh, wait, am I going in? 3, 4, 5. We read freaking 5 chapters today. I think that deserves a round of applause. I think I deserve a round of applause because I've stuttered a lot to get to this point. I'm just very proud of myself for this. I managed to read 5 chapters by myself. Too bad there's mistakes. With some mistakes, sure, but like I think that's a good accomplishment, okay? And then I'm gonna read your comments that I haven't. 10 out of 10 cough. Sounded like you were dying, very inspirational. Is that supposed to mean you want me dead? Or what? Fun cough. Clap, clap, clap. There. Isn't there like the clapping emoji though? I don't know. 10 out of 10 cough. Sounded like you were dying. Very inspirational. It's very inspirational if I'm dying. Okay, so Mason wants me dead. Okay. That's a joke, by the way. Anyway, summary of the 5 chapters we read. Basically, Trophy now works with Test Tube to stay alive and is now her photographer for taking notes and stuff. Test Tube, Pepper joined the search team only to be kidnapped by Test Tube like a week after she joins or something. And like her mouth's bloody and now she's in the room. Lightbulb healed, but is like still mentally damaged and her thought process is starting to make me think that she's gonna start helping Test Tube in the future, which is concerning. Or like try to convince Test Tube that this isn't her or something. And like she's still traumatized and she will literally never be the same. Same with literally everyone that was been kidnapped and she returned to her room, so yeah, and now Soph has to share a room with Pepper, but Pepper can't really talk because her mouth is not a mouth. She can't even make any noise. Like I'll try talking without using my lips. Yeah, because like I guess she can't really talk. Like that's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't think she can talk. Yeah, I don't think you can basically make out what she's trying to say without lips. Lips. Yeah, you can't. Without lips, she can't talk without lips. Yeah, so she don't got no. So yeah, I'll cough like that one day. Thank you for inspiring me, Sonny. Yeah, you can never get on my level of. You have to get. You're gonna cough like that one day. Just believe in yourself, and you could cough like me. I don't know. And then the next chapter that's gonna be for next week is called Deduce, which already is not gonna be good. I already know it. Or did I? Yeah, I read that. You're my hero. Thanks for that cough. I don't even know what's going on at this point. Cough, cough, cough. Anyway, yeah. As much as I like now, this actually got me hooked, and I really want to read more. But like, I know I have to relate because that's the tradition of us reading, or me reading this out loud on stream. So, uh, yeah. Oh, that's satisfying. Listen. To be very quiet to hear this. I don't know if you could hear that, but it's clicking, and that's satisfying. Yeah. So, I think yeah, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you to everyone who stopped by to watch. And that was Hall 17. 5 chapters of Hall 17, chapter 24, 25, 26, 27, 29. And let me see if I could say the titles of them. Chapter 24, Injury. Chapter 25, Photos. Chapter 26, One Day. Chapter 27, Information. Chapter 28, Pepper. And chapter 29, Gathering. So, yeah. I'll see you in 2 days or tomorrow. Have a nice night and sleepy tight. Okay, thank you, Mason. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. So yeah, I'm gonna continue dying after this. So yeah, bye.